Hi, I'm Sally Murphy and I'm sitting outside on my beautiful patio on this gorgeous autumn day, and I wanted to share some of the poems that I remember from my childhood and that have helped to shape, I guess, the poet that I am. And I hope you enjoy it. So I've got with me this childhood treasure. Um, it's part of the Childcraft library, which lots of households back in the 70s had World Book encyclopedias and the accompanying Childcraft library. And volume one of this library was called Poems and Rhymes. And I spent hours and hours as a child by myself or with my siblings or with my mother, exploring and enjoying the poems in this collection. And they're the poems that I still remember. And I thought I would choose one or two. And if you look, you can see I got a bit carried away. I kept marking, dozens of them. And I decided to go back for the one that I was originally looking for. And this poem is the first poem that I remember knowing by heart, apart from fairly traditional nursery rhymes. So I think I remember this because of two things. One is that it's a nonsense poem, and I think that tickled my childhood sense of humour. The other thing that I always think about when I think about this poem is the picture that's in the book. And so I'll read you the poem and then I'll show you the picture. The Purple Cow. I never saw a purple cow. I never hoped to see one, but I can tell you anyhow I'd rather see than be one. And here is the illustration. And the thing that still amazes me about that photo is that cow, that poor cow, must have actually been in some way painted purple for the purposes of the photograph. This was before Photoshop, and I feel that the cow really did sort of probably suffer being painted purple, but as a child, just the amazement, because I knew that a purple cow was an impossibility and I knew that this was a nonsense poem, and yet there it was in this book. So it stayed with me forever. But I think too the fact that this poem was easy to remember, was silly but scanned perfectly, are there in the reasons why it was a childhood favourite, and I can still quote it. Turning the page, another from this section, which was all the sort of nonsense poems, and this one is called Ellie Telephony. Once there was an elephant who tried to use the telephant. No, I mean an elephone who tried to use the telephone. Dear me, I am not certain quite that even now I've got it right. However it was, he got his trunk entangled in the telefunk. The more he tried to get it free, the louder buzzed the telefee. I fear I'd better drop the song of Ellie, Fop and Telephone. And again, gorgeous illustration accompanying it. And so I'm not going to read every single poem in this book. As I said, I've marked probably a dozen poems that I'd love to share, and I'm not going to read every single one of them because this video would become an hour long. But this last one I want to share is a longer one. And one of the things that I remember about this one is that I learnt it off by heart at school. So I already knew it from this book and I already loved it, but I certainly remember being able to recite it. It's called Forgiven. I found a little beetle, so that Beetle was his name. And I called him Alexander, and he answered just the same. I put him in a matchbox and I kept him all the day. And Nanny let my beetle out. Yes, Nanny let my beetle out. She went and let my beetle out, and Beetle ran away. She said she didn't mean it, and I never said she did. She said she wanted matches, and she just took off the lid. She said that she was sorry, but it's difficult to catch an excited sort of beetle you've mistaken for a match. She said that she was sorry, and I really mustn't mind, as there's lots and lots of beetles which she's certain we could find, and we looked about the garden for the holes where beetles hid, and we'd get another matchbox and write beetle on the lid. We went to all the places which a beetle might be near, and we made the sort of noises which a beetle likes to hear. And I saw a kind of something, and it gave a sort of shout, a beetle house and Alexander Beetle coming out. It was Alexander Beetle, I'm as certain as can be, and he had a sort of look as if he thought it must be me. And he had a sort of look as if he thought he ought to say, I'm very, very sorry that I tried to run away. And Nanny's very sorry too, for you know what she did? And she's writing Alexander very blackly on the lid. So Nan and me are friends because it's difficult to catch an excited Alexander you've mistaken for a match. And again, the picture. I always love the pictures. And thank you for indulging me today and listening to some of my favourites from one of my favourite ever collections. And I'd love to hear about your own favourite poems that you remember or that you know by heart, or your favourite collection of poems. Thanks for listening.